So Andrew, as you know, I've largely focused a lot of my investments in South Africa primarily around, buying a property, renting it out, and then secondly, investing in land, rezoning that land and then selling it on for a higher value.
Yeah.
Perhaps you want to give us an overview, a broad overview of maybe some of the strategies that are applicable in the UK market?
Yeah, definitely. The first one I'd say, Warren, is the buy-to-let strategy, which is where you buy the property and rent it out. The strategy which runs alongside the buy-to-let is called the HMO, which stands for House of Multiple Occupancy. So where you have a buy-to-let with one tenancy and one tenant, the HMO can be the same kind of house, but you now have 4 tenants in that same property, therefore getting a higher return.
So you almost rent the rooms out?
Yeah, you'll rent the rooms out. So if you had to take buy-to-let and HMOs, buy-to-lets are more simple. The risk is a lot less because it's one tenancy, whereas it could be 4, 5, 6, 7 tenancies in a HMO, but the returns are a lot higher in a HMO.
Makes sense.
Then you've got strategies like flipping, which is buying and selling, which can be done in South Africa and the UK, of course, where you're buying not necessarily a distressed property, but a property at a discount where you can buy it, put it straight back on the market and make a profit.
So you don't do nothing to the property in that instance?
Not necessarily. You can, of course, by buying distressed, refurbing and selling, but it also works for as long as you're buying it at a discount, whether it needs a refurb or not. As long as there's that meat in the bone, the meat on the bone in the property, as long as there's profit in there, you can buy it, put it straight back out on an auction or through an estate agent and make a profit. So that's flipping. Another strategy is called lease option, where you can take, and this is an advantage for investors who can't get mortgages, where they can take a lease on the property from the freeholder for X amount of years, and they can agree a term or a price with the seller, or with the freeholder, shall I say. And the freeholder, I mean the actual landlord. And that lease can be anything, Warren, from 1 year to 20 years. And whatever the win-win situation is, it will depend on how you set up that strategy. And it can get very complicated. The other strategy is called the rent-to-rent strategy, which is very popular now. Where in the UK, if you can find a distressed landlord that doesn't want to rent out the property, or doesn't want the hassle of renting out but can't sell, there's an opportunity for you to become the tenant and then sublet that property.
Okay, so it's a back-to-back lease.
Yeah, it's a back-to-back lease. And there's no real right and wrong with it. And I've done a lot of these lease options, and what I find is, as long as it's legal, the landlord is happy and you're happy, it's a deal. And what other strategies can I think of? I think those are the main ones, eh?
Yeah, I mean, what about, I often hear these old Victorian houses being chopped up into apartments.
Okay, yeah.
What sort of the advantages of that?
Definitely. So where I spoke about, well, that could be forced appreciation, couldn't it? Or title splitting, where you take an old Victorian house, say in the London area, where you're buying a house for, call it £500,000, and you actually split the house into 2 levels, into 2 flats. Conversion cost could be around £150,000. But what you're doing there is you're then creating 2 flats in that property, and each flat could be worth £400,000 or £450,000, for example. And that's a great way of raising capital.
So it's forcing the appreciation of the value.
So what you're doing is you're buying an asset, you're splitting the asset, and you're forcing up the value, selling the asset and making a good chunk of cash.
Well, I think thanks for sharing your broad oversight of the different strategies that are available in the UK.
Cool, no worries.
Thanks, Andrew.